Thank you, everyone. John, unbelievable. I was talking to my sister this morning, and she said, I'm traveling. I said, where are you? She was being a little discreet. She's never like that. She said, well, I'm up north. And I thought for a second, Bristol? And she said, no, I'm in Atlanta, Georgia. I'm like, well, that is north of Florida, I guess. But here you are. And Huck, thank you for that kind introduction. I heard you say young man. That's flipped. I couldn't be more grateful to be here tonight, and I am going to, as Coach Mills asked me to do, and when Coach Mills asks you to do something, and I'll explain why tonight, you just do it. And so when he asked me to come down and speak tonight, I was thrilled, anxious to do it. But before we get started, there's the obligatory thank you to the Bristol Sports Hall of Fame. And it's the traditional, clap and recognize the directors. But it's so much more than that. And I want to kick this portion of the night off by having everyone who is associated with Bristol Sports Hall of Fame just stand up very briefly. Because there's so many people here tonight. Just please stand and be recognized. Great job there, Jack. And to flip that the other way, because what I'm going to talk about tonight has a lot to do with the sports community. And hopefully I don't get choked up. I don't normally, but this is a very different night for me. I would like to have everyone who's not part of Bristol Sports Hall of Fame stand up and give a round of applause, like a standing ovation to the Bristol Sports Hall of Fame tonight. It's that meaningful. Okay, we can go home now. Oh, that's not going to stay. Just to kick off, for a show of hands, who here had an opportunity to play sports as a youth? Think back to your childhood, way back, and just raise your hand if you had an opportunity to play Little League, Pop Warner football, boys club, girls club, tennis, soccer, anything as a youth in your community. So that's pretty much everyone here. The concept around Bristol and Bristol's community is there's no other sports community like Bristol. The time and effort that Bristol puts into giving their youths opportunity to learn life lessons through sports that carry on with them for the rest of their lives comes from the Bristol sports community, and I'm here tonight as a representative. I'm only one. I'm a representative of those youth who are given the opportunity from all of those who came before me and who came before you to set up a community that instills in their youth values that they'll use for the rest of their lives. Think about that. Teamwork, discipline. There's leadership skills that you learn through sports. Fellowship skills. Reinhard Walker, where are you?
He's not here.
There's Reinhard, Bristol Sports Hall of Fame's finest. I played behind Reinhard and looked up to him. Great athlete, but not only that, he was a great person. Fellowship skills is something that's incredibly important to youth as they go through sports. And the Bristol community provides all of that opportunity to learn those life lessons. For me, the three most important that I learned through sports and I carry on every day, and it's been helpful for me as a family member, it's been helpful to me as a business owner, it's been helpful to me in the community, as a community activist, I guess. Three most important things I got out of sports. Number one, you can't quit. Never, ever quit. And I think that's been really important. I'll talk about that a little bit more through the journey. But I learned that through sports. I learned that through Coach Mills, Coach LeBeau, Coach Kilby. Never quit. That's a trait you learn by getting knocked on your ass and having to get back up. From striking out in the big game and having to get back up to losing that volley at the end of the tennis match that cost you the state championship and having to play again next year. The life lessons through sports are immeasurable, and I honestly don't think there's any community that offers it more than Bristol, based on my journey. Number one, never give up. Number two, and this one's really important, you have to work hard. To be successful at anything, my advice to young people, and I meet with a lot of young people every day, whatever it is that you want to do, you have to work hard. No one gets a free pass. There is no hack to being successful. It's not about where you grew up. It's not about how connected you are. It's not about what you look like. It's not about what your parents do. It's about how hard you work. And those life lessons come from sports. Huge. And the third and most important in my life, and I try to celebrate this every day, is the concept of being a team player, a locker room person, and creating relationships. And the relationships are the most important aspect, I think, of what you do every day. And here's the biggest thing that I learned from Bristol, and the most meaningful thing to me as we talk about how my life played out from growing up here to where I am today. It has been all about relationships. And it's not just being in a relationship, in whatever aspect you want to have a relationship, it's about being in a healthy relationship. And that's a big difference. There are a lot of relationships out there. There's good relationships, bad relationships, toxic relationships. But a healthy relationship has to be mutually beneficial. And in order for it to be mutually beneficial, you have to give into that relationship. And that relationship doesn't mean it's limited to your partner in life. My partner Erin is here tonight. A relationship with your children, your spouse, a relationship with your faith, with your team, whatever relationship you want to have, you have to take a step back and ask, is it mutually beneficial? And that starts with, what am I bringing to the relationship? Because if you're not bringing anything to the relationship, it's not going to be mutually beneficial and it won't be healthy. How did I learn that? Bristol was my community that started the relationship by providing me with incredible life lessons and opportunities that I don't think a lot of other people had. And I feel blessed. So come back and speak to your community? Yeah, that's easy. I'm incredibly indebted to my community because Bristol, through sports and other support systems that were here when I was a kid, provided me with that part of the relationship. And this is just me giving it back. So it's a healthy relationship. I am the middle child. My older sister, me, we had a younger brother growing up. And we all played sports. We all loved sports. But after a certain age, my younger brother had to stop playing sports. He was born with a medical condition where he had a fully formed skull at birth. And he had his skull removed and a plastic plate put in when he was about 18 months old. And he was no longer able to play sports after a certain age. And he loved sports. My sister and I played sports. Honestly, I played more than she did. I played football, I played baseball, and I really loved playing sports, but not like him. He was a fanatic. And I had all those life lessons that I was given by being able to play sports. I was healthy. I had that opportunity. He didn't have that same opportunity. And yet, in some random way, if he wasn't at my games or my sister's games, he started going to the Bristol Red Sox games. And he went often enough that one day they said, hey, you're here all the time, our bat boy's going off to college, why don't you become the bat boy? And so when he was about 16 years old, my younger brother became the bat boy of the Bristol Red Sox. And even though he couldn't pitch or he couldn't field, his role in being that bat boy made him feel every bit a sense of belonging, and he had every bit of a sense of accomplishment. which is really what we get out of sports, right? What's more important than that? He had that benefit. Now, because of his medical issues, it created a number of financial issues for our family. And we moved around a lot. So we were in Fleetwood Road. My sister can rattle off every number, but somewhere on Fleetwood Road, we're in Constance Lane, we're in Duncan Street. We moved around a lot in the city of Bristol. And for me, the constant of always having forced the Little League, the Patriots Pop Warner football team, midget football, the boys club. Malcolm just showed me a photo of Tiny, who I haven't seen. Everyone remembers Tiny. It was an incredible safety net for me to have that same consistency. We could move, we could relocate, but you know what? I always went to the Forest Little League, and I always felt home there. The latter years we lived up on Goodwin Street, up on Federal Hill, made it up big time. I don't know if anyone's ever ridden their bike up that hill. But we had a little rental up there, and it was the 4 years of my high school where I had the privilege of playing for Coach Mills, Coach Morin, Coach LeBeau, Coach Castelline, Coach Krampitz. You know all these guys. Football in the fall, I played baseball with Coach Kilby in the summer. And these guys were the mentors who taught you these life lessons. That wasn't me figuring it out. I didn't read about it in a book. I didn't watch it on social media. Believe it or not, there's no Instagram back then, guys. It was real. And it was people who invested their time. And it enabled you to look back on and think of the leadership they had and the support that those guys got in shaping kids for the future. And I'm still blown away at that leadership, that commitment, that sacrifice to say, this is what I want to do with my life. I want to make young people better. Is there anything more admirable than that? And that leadership brought in unbelievable support. We stopped at Max's Pizza today. Max's Pizza. Max's Pizza, Bristol Savings Bank, Robert's Jewelers. Think of all the companies that supported the Little League fields and the uniforms. They could have done a lot of other things with that money, but they cared about the community. And I'm the benefactor of that. And I'm a representative of so many benefactors of that I'm incredibly grateful to have an opportunity to come back and talk to you people about this. My senior year, through football, I connected with Tufts. This is about the point in time when my kids say, Dad, you gotta land the plane here, but I got more to go. We're going all the way back to my senior year, high school. And I connected with Tufts University. And it was a school in Boston. They had a Division III football team. For whatever reason, the coach wanted me to come there, told me to apply to the school. Coach Mills and the rest of the staff was incredibly helpful in getting game film, helping me get my SATs so I could get everything lined up and apply to the school. And wouldn't you know, I got accepted. In my senior year, while living in Federal Hill, I get a phone call from the head coach of Tufts University. He said, congrats, you get in, you're accepted. Couldn't be more excited for you. And believe it or not, Tufts was 15 grand a year back then. Yeah, 15 grand a year. I just heard it groan. And so this was the deal. The coach was all excited. He said, Jay, we're so excited. You got accepted, and he had me apply to the engineering school and apply early decision. And the reason he did that was my SAT scores, don't anyone write this down, was 1,070. I had 630 in my math and 440 in my verbals, and I think if you just filled out your name on the verbal test, you got at least 400. So the guy says, listen, if you're going to come here, you got to apply to the engineering school. You have to apply early decision. This is your only shot to get in. And then he calls me and says, you got in. Not only that, Jay, you have an unbelievable financial aid package. You're going to get an engineering grant, you're going to have a student loan, you're going to have a work study in the spring where you're going to have a job. All in, the 15 grand is only going to cost you $6,400 a year. And I will never forget this phone call. For you young people in the room today, believe it or not, phones used to be attached to the wall. Well, not that long ago. And probably once every 6 months, because I had an older sister who was high school age, she'd run up the phone bill and they'd disconnect our phone, remember? And so this month, we actually had phone service, and the phone's connected to the wall, and the guy calls me and says, hey, congrats. You got in, and you got this unbelievable financial aid package. I hung up the phone, and I literally floated into my family room. My parents are sitting there watching TV, and I come in so excited. Donovan, you hanging in there? All right.
5 more minutes.
No. We haven't even gotten my first car yet. Where are we going? So, my parents are watching TV, and I tell them the great news, and all I can remember, and I'll never forget it, was the two of them looking at each other like, who's going to tell them? Like, tell them what? Like, Jay, we don't have $6,400. We're anticipating you go to a state school, which is $2,500 if it's an in-state tuition. And we're trying to figure out how to come up with the $2,500. I couldn't believe it. I couldn't wrap my head around that. I mean, I knew we didn't have a lot of money, but no one in the neighborhood seemed like they had a lot of money, and kids still went to college. Like, what's going on? This doesn't make any sense. So what do I do? Dad, what do I do? He said, well, call the guy back. Tell him you can't go. Imagine that. Call the guy back, tell him you can't go. It's another most memorable phone call. And it ties into that theme of don't quit. Because quitting would be, you know what, I'm not calling him back. I'm just not going. And we'll figure something else out. I quit. It's too embarrassing. I'm not going to make that phone call. But through Bristol sports, you learn, get back up and get back in there, make the phone call. And I called the head coach and said, Coach, I'm embarrassed to say this, but I can't come. We don't have the money. And I was incredibly embarrassed, and he knew it. And the thing I'll never ever forget was his reaction to me was so kind and so thoughtful to say, hey, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. He knew I was worried about it. He said, a lot of kids are in the same boat. He said, it's okay, I understand. Wherever you go, you'll do great. He said, but do me a favor. Give me a couple days. Don't make it this was a Wednesday. Give me a couple of days. Don't make any decisions. Don't do anything until Friday. Let me call you back. He called me back Friday afternoon. He said, listen, you got another engineering grant. I got you another student loan. You can have a work study during the fall while you're playing football. But all in, it's $3,400. I remember sitting with my parents that night saying, hey, guys, $3,400. And there was a lot of commotion around that. And at the end of the night, they sat me down and said, listen, we got about $1,000 in the bank. We don't know how we're going to do it. But call the guy back and tell him you're going to go. Don't quit. I called him and said, Coach, I'm coming. Fast forward to the finishing of my senior year, $3,400. And again, I'm a math guy, 6 to 30 math scores. $3,400 divided by 2, $1,700 a semester. My parents have $1,000 in the bank. What happened to me? I was one of 12 recipients to get a $1,000 Kiwanis Club student loan. $1,000. Plunk. Right there my senior year. I worked my whole summer. We drove by it on the way down here at the wood pile, splitting wood on Middle Street here, and saved another $1,000 in cash And when my dad dropped me off at Tufts, I had $2,000, went into the bursar's office, paid $1,700, walked out of there with $300 for my first semester. My first semester freshman year, clearly not ready for Tufts academically. I got a 1.8. Yeah, 1.8. I started as a freshman, played 7 out of the 8 games. That worked, but the academics were super challenging. They weed you out in the engineering program, and I was ready to be weeded. On top of that, my freshman year, my dad, who sold used cars, got a hernia, and he was laid up for the fall. You're laid up and you can't get to the lot, you can't sell cars. So I'm pretty much out of money. I'm coming back to Bristol for Thanksgiving break. I got a 1.8, had a pretty good football season. And I'm talking amongst my friends about transferring. At least not going back to Tufts. I don't have the money. And frankly, I don't think I have the aptitude academically. I'm gonna mail it in. Not going back. When there's 2 or 3 more weeks of school, I come home for Christmas break and I'm trying to figure it all out. I get a phone call from Dr. Mack of the Kiwanis Club. And we were just talking about him earlier tonight, remember? Dr. Mack calls me up and says, hey Jay, I understand you had a good football season. How'd it go? I said, well, great. He said, did you like Tufts? I said, yeah, I loved it. He said, are you going back? I said, yeah, I'm trying to figure that out right now. I said, well, Dr. Mack said this to me. He said, I wonder if you could do me a favor. We overfunded the account. We have an additional $1,000. Can you take that money? You can only imagine what I was thinking. Where do I have to be? Bristol Savings Bank, noontime, bang, I'm there. I got an extra $1,000. And frankly, I didn't realize till I was like 25, 26 years old, because remember, I'm 18 at this point. I'm 25, 26 years old in Boston. I'm driving around one day and it hits me. Like, wait, what? Overfunded the account? Like, these guys are math guys. This guy runs a bank. He didn't want to embarrass me, and he wanted to make it as easy as possible to say, I know you need help, here's an extra $1,000. Think about that. And I went back up for my sophomore year, or the second semester of my freshman year, and figured out my next 3 years and graduated from Tufts. From that, more like life lessons around hard work, never quitting, and building relationships. In 1996, actually, when I first graduated from Tufts, when I was a freshman, a senior who was the quarterback of our football team went on to work for a construction company in Cambridge. I'm a civil engineer. I get a civil engineering degree. You'll never hear me state my GPA, but I actually have the degree. But the one thing I did learn when I was there is that I'm not cut out to be an engineer. And with a lot of student loans and the money I had to pay back to the Kiwanis Club, I needed a job. And when I graduated college, the quarterback who was quarterback when I was a freshman was working for a construction company in Cambridge. And through my relationship with him, they hired me. And that's when I started to figure out how important relationships were. I worked for that company for 10 years. In 1996, I cashed in my 401k, I bought a desk and a phone, and I started Jay Calnan and Associates, which was a construction management firm out of Boston. Through the last 30 years, what I have learned is that when I first started the company and I would sit with a potential client and explain to them how good we were and all the skills we had, the talent we had, and how we can help them build their building, I realized I was like everyone else, pitching them on trying to get the business. What I learned pretty quickly was that I wanted to have a relationship, I have to invest in the relationship. And that's going back to the mutually beneficial we talked about that I learned through sports. And having an opportunity to meet with a prospective client, and instead of saying, hey, this is what we're about, this is what we do, can you hire us? I learned to ask, what are you doing? And listen, and then try to help. And through that process, I started to figure out that to be in a relationship, you had to give, to get. And that was just building on what I learned through sports here as a kid. And I've spent 30 years building a business around that simple concept that started here in Bristol. 15 years ago, we started Team Impact. Huck referred to that a little earlier. My younger brother didn't go to college. And a couple years after I graduated college, he was killed in a car accident. Whew. I don't get choked up on that anymore, but that who got me. He was killed in a car accident on a Saturday at his lunch break. And it was such a random thing that it really made you ask, why would a kid go through that hardship with his health issues to have it end that way? I get kids deal with health issues. I get that. And my brother dealt with that. That's how it goes. And I understand how kids get killed in car accidents, sad as that is. I get that. But why have those two for this kid? And so there's a lot of soul searching there. And again, from the standpoint of, do you want to quit? Do you want to give up? I wanted to quit on my faith. And I definitely wanted to give up on my faith. But that's how you get through things. You get back up, you get back in there. Where did I learn that? Bristol Sports. And it made me reflect on how fortunate I am. I am healthy, and I've had unbelievable opportunity. It made me reflect on the fact that I'm here every day, and he's not. And so what are you going to do about it? That was 1989, and I'm a slow learner, as you guys understand. 1999, there's a little boy named Joe McGinn. He was best friends with Stephen Mills, and when we were in high school, Joe and Steve were the little 7, 8-year-old boys roaming around the football field, jumping on the tackling dummies, bringing us water during our summer breaks. Two kids thick as thieves. Joe went off to Northeastern, Steve went off to Yale. When Joe was at Northeastern, huge sports fanatic. He had a medical condition, wouldn't allow him to play sports, but he loved sports. He befriended the basketball coach at Northeastern. Sadly, through his medical condition, he had to have his legs amputated and transferred to UConn because he had to go home. And he commuted to UConn. And in 1999, in UConn's first national championship run, he was part of the basketball team. A lot of people here in Bristol remember the story. It was memorable, and right there, just like my brother in the Bristol Red Sox, here's Joe again, 10 years later, 1999. Right around 2009, again, I'm a slow learner, I came across a little girl who was part of the women's lacrosse team at Northwestern University. Kind of a long story. The women's coach, her brother was my next door neighbor in Boston. And so I had a connection there. And here's a little girl who has this connection to this Northwestern women's lacrosse team. And it's the same concept. She gets that sense of belonging, she gets that sense of purpose. The same way Joe McGinn did. The same way my brother did. What I also noticed was that the student athletes that were part of those teams got every bit, if not more, benefit by getting a perspective that I had after my brother died. How lucky am I that I'm healthy? How lucky am I that I'm here? And that concept kicked off this organization called Team Impact. And so 15 years ago, I went to a handful of my relationships, friends of mine, in that mutually beneficial world, and said, why don't we fund this concept that instead of a kid randomly being at a ball game and get selected to be a bat boy, or a kid randomly connecting with a coach at a school, or a girl randomly connecting to a team in Chicago, why don't we make it happen? Why don't we leverage our network? We have relationships. I don't know anyone in Bristol and Boston Children's Hospital. If I call there, they're not going to call me back. But I'm very good friends with a board member. So I call him, he calls the hospital, they call me right back. What are you looking for? Well, we'd like to find a family that has a child between 5 and 15 that's battling some life-threatening or chronic illness. Well, there's a family right here, and they live in Newburyport, Mass. Wow, Newburyport, Mass. That's right next to St. A's College. I don't know anyone at St. A's College, but I went to Tufts. The Tufts baseball coach used to coach at UNH. UNH coach used to be the assistant coach at St. A's College. Why don't we get St. A's to have that kid be part of the team? So on Mother's Day 2011, we drafted a little boy named Benjamin Roy onto St. A's College hockey. One kid. And 2 months ago, we just surpassed the 4,000 kids drafted on the college teams all across the country. And if you don't mind, Tommy's going to show a quick video. Did we lose you? Oh, there he is.
Through all the hard days and all the scary stuff. Through all the tears and moments.
We'll always have our team behind us.
Team Impact places kids with serious illness and disabilities on college sports teams. With athletes who support and inspire us.
While we do the same for them. Team Impact, all in, all together.
And so it's thrilling for me to be here tonight. Again, Coach Mill says, do this, you do it. And I couldn't be more thrilled to be here. One of the components he asked me to talk about was your legacy. For me, I'm blessed. I have 3 healthy children. They've all grown up around sports. My oldest son, captain of Boston College hockey, drafted by the Blackhawks, understands the value of sports. My younger son, All-American lacrosse player, played at Hopkins. And my daughter in the middle, arguably the best athlete of the 3, chose not to play college sports and traveled around Europe during college. Yeah, just like her aunt. And so, we don't measure things based on championships or trophies. It's just measured on character and relationships. And for me, that's my legacy. My kids, my family, my loved ones. Erin, by the way, 1,200 point basketball player in her high school. She's embarrassed. But she was also captain of her high school soccer team in Gettysburg, Gettysburg, PA. And I heard a couple people go, wow, captain of the team, yeah, that's pretty cool. The only thing is they didn't have women's soccer. She was captain of the boys team. And went on to play at NC State. It's not about the trophies. It's about the character. It's about the relationships, and it's about the blessings that we have playing team sports. And we are blessed. That's our legacy. My brother's legacy and our family, that $1,000 phone call to meet at Bristol Savings Bank last December, our family committed $250,000 to the Bristol Sports Hall of Fame. And it's not enough. We're going to do more. But there are other kids who need that same help out there, and we're gonna get them that help. And then lastly, the city of Bristol's legacy is team impact. Because if you don't get from the community through sports, you can't give to the community through sports. That's what we're teaching every day to 250,000 student athletes. Donovan being one of them, with Riley at UConn. And we're teaching that every day. Where did we learn that? Right here in Bristol, Connecticut. And so I can't thank you enough, Bristol and the Bristol Sports Hall of Fame, for everything that you guys have done and everything you guys continue to do. Apologize for going so long, but it was incredibly important for you guys to know how that mutually beneficial relationship thing started here. Thank you very much.